3 months, went from about 750K to MRR to like 19K MRR. I actually dropped out of high school when I was 15 years old and jumped on a rock and roll tour bus and kind of never looked back. The business was not built on any foundation. It wasn't like it was built on a rocky foundation. There was no foundation. I was actually trying to prove everybody else wrong and that it wasn't my fault. But Mick Jagger has a very special place in my heart. He also played matchmaker for my husband and I. So I work still with, one of the biggest Canadian artists, Drake. I know there's a lot of controversy around him, but he is the most focused individual I have ever met in my entire life. And I always joke that, if he listens to this, I'm probably getting fired.
Do you regret taking the entrepreneurial path? Hey, welcome back to another episode of Step into Success. I am lucky to have Tarra Stubbins on with us today. And Tara, I was telling you this before we got started, that you're one of the coolest guests I've ever had the privilege of talking to on the show. So why don't you tell the audience who you are and what you do?
It's a bit of a long question.
Yeah.
But I guess we can give a bit of a high level. So I'm Tara. I'm the founder currently of two companies. One is Take It Easy Group, which is a team of chief of staff where we help celebrities and high profile people who have business ideas launch them and then run with them. And then I run a talent management and business incubator for creators and athletes and musicians called Wildcard, which I am really excited that just launched in the beginning of 2026. So really excited to be diving into that. But I got my career, as I say, chasing rock stars around the world. I actually dropped out of high school when I was 15 years old and jumped on a rock and roll tour bus and kind of never looked back, lived that crazy life since then and have been chasing that rock and roll dream.
That's awesome. And yeah, I totally think it's so cool that you dropped out of high school to go jump on. And for everyone who doesn't know you or your story completely, who was that band?
So I'm from Canada, and that band was an unknown band. It wasn't even a like rock and roll tour bus. I say that because it makes the story sound a little sexier, but it really was a like van, a 15 passenger van going across Canada. And the band was an unknown band then, and it didn't make it. They're not, I think they're working in like corporate or something now, but they were playing bars. And the funny part is because I was 15, I wasn't allowed to go into the bar, even to work. And so they used to have to sneak me in the back door in like the kitchen so I could go and set up the stage or set up the dressing room or run in with the coffee or whatever I needed to do. So I wasn't allowed to go in the front door. So
Mm.
yeah, I don't know if I recommend that path for everyone, but it was a dream of mine that I really wanted to follow. I always had this. I had this t-shirt when I was younger and it said, "Remember me, I'm going to be a star." And I wore that shirt everywhere to the point where it disintegrated. And when I had it, I was very young. I was like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years old. And in my head, I always thought that being a star was being like a rock star. So singing, dancing, playing a musical instrument, being up on this stage. And I'm not sure why, because I don't come from a musical family at all. My mother was a school principal, and my father actually was a radio DJ, but for like a classical and jazz radio station. But yeah, I didn't really have that like rock star blood in me, but for some reason I thought that. But I have had and still have very little musical talent. You can see the guitar behind me, but when I play it, it sounds like a dying animal. Like I'm really, really not good at it. And so I thought, well, I'm just gonna throw out this dream. Like I can't be a rock star, so, burn the t-shirt and let's just go on with life. But for some reason I held that dream in, the back of my head as I was kind of making these pivotal decisions as a young kid. And my friends all became kind of in the music industry as much as you can be in 15, 16, 18 years old.
Right.
And this opportunity came up and I did it. And it was in the 90s. So, no cell phones. My mother wanted to murder me. Like it was just one, I was dropping out of high school, and two, I was getting on in this van with like six other guys, and I she couldn't track me. So yeah, it was interesting, but I fell in love with not necessarily like the rock and roll lifestyle, but the helping part. And I wanted to be able to help more and more people be able to achieve their dreams.
That's really cool. And so while maybe that first band that you toured with when you dropped out of school wasn't the most famous band that ever lived, since then you have had yourself in circles with some of the most famous bands of all time. I mean, the Rolling Stones, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Nickelback, Kiss. I mean, how did you go from the unknown band when you were 15 working and helping them into those, super famous rock and roll Hall of Fame bands?
Yeah. So when I came off that first kind of tour, it was kind of spring, summer, fall because no one wants to tour in Canada in the winter. And I had the bug. I was hooked. I wanted more. Um, but I was like now 16 years old. I didn't really know how to get more. And I went back and I finished high school. But I was always craving, like, how can I help in the music industry? So all of the kind of decisions I was making as a 16 and 17-year-old kid was, oh, is there a band playing locally that I can go see? Or this person I hung out with, they were fun, and their brother is playing guitar in their garage. So let me go hang out with them. Like I was just trying to dig my claws into as much of that industry as possible to see where it would lead. And I actually did an free internship at a local like warehouse company that provided lights and a little bit of staging and audio for big Canadian bands and tours. They also did like corporate events and things like that.
Okay.
And I kind of thought that I wanted to get into more of the technical side. I didn't know what I didn't know. And there was, they were just about to go off on the Kenny Rogers tour. And one of the guys, one of the like actual head like stage managers, his wife was pregnant and went into very early labor. And so he could not get on the tour bus. And so they were just looking for people to fill a spot. And they found one person, but they weren't as fully trained and confident to be able to take the full role. So they looked at me and they were like, "Hey, Tara, you want to go assist? You have to jump on this tour bus right now. It's going from Toronto to Ottawa." I was like, "Yep, I'm in. Let's go." Called my parents to get them to send me my clothes in Ottawa, and
Wow.
away I went. And I think it was just saying, and I know it was just saying, and I tell people this all the time in business, is you have to say yes when you're first starting out to absolutely everything to be able to figure out what you want and also to get the opportunities.
Yeah, for sure. That's cool. I'm also a big believer in saying yes to as many things as you can. Quick little side note, listening to you talk about your story, I'm assuming that you either love this movie or I don't know, maybe you hate it, but have you ever seen Almost Famous?
Everybody brings this up.
Yeah.
Yes, so I'm not a journalist. I actually love the movie. Love the song Tiny Dancer. Well, loved it before, but that movie, I always think of it. But yes, I'm not a journalist and I'm definitely not a groupie. But yeah, it's a good band or a
Yeah,
good
but
movie.
yeah, that's the thing. It's just the story, it just makes me think of that movie, right? How can it not? That's great. And so you were on the road for 10 years. So you did the Kenny Rogers tour first, it sounds like. That was there in Canada. And then how did you continue to, as you said earlier, dig your claws into that industry and get more and more
Yeah.
experience with more and more bands and artists?
Yeah, so the music industry is really interesting, and it's very much of a relationship-based business. You can be really bad at your job, but if you make people smile and if you're like, "Yep, I'm gonna go try," and people like you, then they want to have you around. I'm not saying I was bad at my job. I actually think I was quite good at it, and that's why I succeeded as long as I did in the industry. But I was just always so I just wanted to be around people. I wanted to do a good job. I've always had that in me of just, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do something to 100%. And I don't care if it is the smallest task of getting someone a coffee or picking, dirty underwear up off of a bus floor. I'll do it. But then I also want to do some cool things too, whatever that is. But I'm not going to complain about it. And again, I think it goes back to the fact that even from that first kind of tour I did, I realized that I just love helping people and it was in me. And that's just what I wanted to do more of. Really looking back at it, I don't even know if it had to be in the music industry. That was just kind of the path that I fell into of understanding how I could help people. But I could have been an assistant really anywhere, and probably have still really enjoyed it. Maybe an assistant in like a corporate environment might have been a little slower than the pace that I was, getting used to and actually operate it now. So maybe I wouldn't have enjoyed it as much. But yeah, it was that really helping people that I wanted. So I just started making a name for myself and started getting asked when one tour ended, "Hey, do you want to go jump on this tour? Do you want to go jump on this tour?" And when the Stones called, they were actually rehearsing in Toronto. So a lot of their touring crew is actually Canadian because of that. Their management company is Canadian. So I was very excited to jump in. I actually started out, I didn't think I was going to tour. I started out managing their rental homes that they had while they were rehearsing in Toronto for 3 months.
Okay.
So it was before Airbnb. So we actually like rented these random people's houses near the school where they were rehearsing. And yeah, I got them ready and I made sure that they had everything before and during and after. And then I kind of just left with the tour as well. So that was really exciting for me.
That's cool. So I want to get into a couple business questions around that, but before I do, who is your favorite artist or group that you worked with? Maybe, and I guess there's two different ways to answer that. So I'm not necessarily asking whose music you like the most, but who did you enjoy working with the most?
So I don't know if I enjoyed almost everyone. There's a couple that will remain nameless that I said I would never work with again. But everybody had a little piece of like, oh, they were really cool. I really enjoyed liking them, or I really enjoyed working with them. But Mick Jagger has a very special place in my heart. I did 2 tours with him. So I spent probably about 5 years total with him and very closely working with him. And that was the longest artist that I ever kind of worked with on tour. So he obviously has a bigger place. He also played matchmaker for my husband and I. So a very fun story. My husband was also working out on the road, and Mick Jagger decided that we needed to be together, and that was 20 years ago. So yeah, so Mick Jagger, I would say, would definitely be top of the list, but there's lots of them that I've like really enjoyed working with.
That's cool. I have a feeling there's not many people on the planet that can say Mick Jagger is the one that hooked them up with their current
Yeah.
spouse, right? So all of that work that you did touring with all these groups and these individuals and everything, what lessons did you learn from that that you then were able to use to help you become so successful in the business world?
So that's something that I've been actually reflecting on and continually to learn. because the lessons that I thought I learned actually contributed to a massive business failure for me. So when I was out on the road, I'll tell this story. I've told it on a few podcasts, but in case your listeners haven't heard it. So I had this big aha moment where I was helping, we will not name the person, a rock star. And one of his crazy requests was every time he traveled, he wanted his toothbrush to be like, well, I had to unpack his suitcase. And when I was unpacking it, he wanted his toothbrush to be sanitized in the hotel dishwasher. I don't know. People ask me all
Okay.
the time, why or did you do it? Of course I did it, and I don't know why. Um, but and actually I was telling this story on another podcast and someone said, I know who it is. And
Oh
I said, you
gosh.
don't. And we said, after the call, he was like, was it this person? And I was like, it actually wasn't. And he's like, oh, he likes his toothbrushes cleaned. I was like, there's another one? So
Wow.
I thought that was pretty funny. But anyway,
I would just get a new
so in
toothbrush.
exactly. And this was the early 2000s. So there were like electric toothbrushes that you could change out, like the head every day, but um they weren't as popular as like they were really expensive. Not that that matters to this, millionaire rock star, but anyway, it was a thing. So a lot of hotels would know that this happened because he'd been asking for this for a long time. So it was just a request like, oh, here comes this crazy lady with the toothbrush again. But some hotels, we either hadn't been in that country or city before, or it was a brand new like luxury hotel we were staying at or whatever. So this one time we were actually in Shanghai and it was a brand new like ultra five-star hotel. And I was in the back of the kitchen with this toothbrush, trying to explain that I had to put this toothbrush in the dishwasher. And it was also before like Google Translate on phones. So I was having a hard time communicating that I had to do this. They had no idea what I was saying. And I just remember standing there with this toothbrush in hand, thinking, there's got to be more to life than this. And that was like my big aha moment where I knew I still wanted to help people, but I wanted to help more than one crazy rock star at a time. So I thought about it for a little bit, finished the tour, dabbled around in some other tours, and then decided that I was going to make the jump and quote unquote open my own business. And I say that because I didn't really know I was opening a business. I had zero business background. I just had this dream that I wanted to help more than one crazy rock star. And I fell into running a lifestyle management business for high profile people in Toronto, where I was still living. And so I was managing their homes and their lives, basically. And I fell into that because that was kind of the crowd I was already around from supporting them. So it seemed to be a natural transition for me. But I was always really craving community around other like entrepreneurs because I didn't know, again, I didn't know what I was doing. There was no like co-working spaces. There was not a lot of resources for entrepreneurs. And when the first co-working space opened up, I was like the second person to join. I volunteered at the front desk. I was just so excited to be around other people building businesses like me. And I could see that they were having a hard time getting over that, what I like to say, kind of hump of success. They could kind of build, 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 and then it was really hard to get to the next level. And I was like, oh, I see that with the, very successful people that I work with and have worked with. I can help you. I know what to do. And so I was like, you just need strategic support behind you. So I kind of fell backwards into opening up a executive assistant business where I would help these founders and I would share the secrets of my, past with all these very successful people of how to kind of build a business with strategic support behind you. And while I was running the business, I was like, I'm going to do exactly what I'm teaching. And that's, set a big goal because I would see everybody around me, all the celebrities, they would set a big goal and then they would focus 100% on getting that big goal and they would get it and they would move on to the next big goal. I was like, cool. So all I have to do is set some numbers, work backwards, focus really hard on getting those numbers, and this business is going to succeed. And it did. We were 12, sometimes 20xing the business year over year because we were setting these ridiculously unheard of numbers. Like, let's get 50 new clients in a service-based business, 50 new clients this month. That would be great. And we would, because we would do anything and everything to get those 50 new clients. Were they the right clients? No. Could they pay us? Maybe for a month. Did we have a structure in place to support them? Absolutely not. Did we have a hiring plan? Nope. Absolutely didn't happen. So what I thought was the way to success of like setting these big numbers, focusing on your dreams, breaking down or your goals, breaking down those goals into steps, actionable steps on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. Yeah, it works, but I forgot the main part, or I didn't know the main part of you have to build that foundation at the beginning to be able to support any growth and any goals that you're trying to actually create for the business. So I had a massive business failure because of that, because I thought, oh, I'm just going to copy what I see these big rock stars doing.
So I got a couple questions for you.
Yeah.
So for one, and I'm going to go a little off script here because I just think it's a good segue talking about the collapse of the business. So real quick, for one, just to make sure that I have a clear understanding too, this was the business where you were helping to manage the lifestyles and homes of. So what
No, that
business was?
business is actually, yeah, that business is still running and
Right.
is
Okay.
kind of fine. I don't really think about it, but it was the executive assistant business that I started to try and help these kind of creator or not creators, early stage
The
founders
ones that you were meeting at the
build their
co-work
own.
place and stuff like that. Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so this is the business that you went from like making 750K a month and you went all the way down to like 20K a month or
Yep.
that's
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Within 3 months, went from about 750K to MRR to like 19K MRR.
so yeah, that's I mean that's a dramatic drop there. What did you in that moment when that happened? I mean, did you like see it trickling down day by day, or was it more of just like a oh my gosh, now we're down here because 3 months. I mean, that's pretty quick, especially for that big of a drop.
Yeah. So again, the the business was not built on any foundation. It wasn't like it was built on a rocky foundation. There was no foundation at all. So the hiring plan for the business was, can you start tomorrow and pass a background check? Yes. Okay, come in. I had in my head that I wanted like full time, and this is a business that was based in Canada and the US. So we had full time W-2 employees and also full time like T4 in Canada employees. For some reason in my head, I didn't want contractors. I thought that it would make us like a lesser business for some reason. So we were paying like payroll taxes and benefits in the US, and it was just a nightmare. There was no being able to like each employee on a good month would maybe make us $1,500 profit. There was no getting out of that until we decided, oh, instead of you only having 4 clients, we're going to give you 25 clients. You can handle it. It's just managing inboxes.
Okay.
But then on the background, we were selling, oh, we're a strategic partner. We're part of your business. We embed in your business. And so, yeah, that didn't work. And obviously, the hiring plan didn't work. So we had extremely angry clients. We had extremely angry staff members, and it was bubbling. I also hired a friend, and it was really great at the beginning until it wasn't great anymore. And we couldn't have the business grew, well, grew bigger than both of us. But I wasn't going anywhere because I was the full founder of it. But it grew past her. And because she was a friend, I didn't want to have that conversation of like, I think we need to part ways. Like, this is too big for you and what you can bring to the table. Um, so there was a lot of internal tension there as well, which caused a lot with the team and the staff as well. Um, so I could definitely see it bubbling, and that was really stressful. I would say probably for a good part of 2023. The big collapse happened right at the end of 2023, but probably for like all of 2023, I could see that this is going to be very difficult to fix
Mhm.
all of these problems. There was lawsuits because um, clients were unhappy and staff were unhappy. It was just a mess. So, and then that just came to a head where more staff started quitting, which they should have. I don't hold it against them at all. And then their clients were like, the ones that were happy, they're like, well, I don't want to be passed around to another executive assistant. Sometimes it was like their second or third or fourth executive assistant anyway. So they're like, screw this, peace out, I'm done. So it just kind of all fell in that like 3 month period.
So one other thing that I read as I was, getting ready for our conversation, there was something I came across that you said when it came to your business here is that you were chasing the wrong metrics
Yep.
and you were bringing in clients just to bring them in. My question about that is I feel like as a new founder or especially or even if you're in sales and you're working for other people, whatever the case may be, your thought is I need to get as much business as possible. I need to get as many clients as possible. What made someone the wrong client? Like I take it if you could redo it, there's certain people you wouldn't have brought on even if they were willing to. Can you explain that a little more? Because I think that's important for, even people like myself that are in sales to know when someone's not the right fit.
Yeah. So for us, it was a very nuanced situation of if they were the right client or not. But it kind of because some people could handle like a fractional part-time executive assistant. Some people actually needed like a full-time, say, administrative assistant because they just needed someone like virtually beside them all the time. So the fractional model, just even though we wanted to force it on people, didn't work for everybody. Um, a lot of people just needed because we always would pitch that we were way better than a, virtual overseas assistant. Like, we're strategic, we can help do way more than like run an inbox. But because we were stacking so many clients on top of the one executive assistant, there was no strategy. It was just running in an inbox, which they could get for $5 an hour overseas, and we were charging them $3,500 a month to do it. So, that was on us for the client not being like, if it was just an inbox management, but we would actually convince them that they needed more, wasn't the right fit. And I had a big problem. I was, as you said, like chasing metrics. I was chasing those numbers. So I would set massively big goals. Let's get 50 new clients this month. And I didn't care who they were. So when people would tell me, hey, you have to niche down, like you have to figure out, are you helping tech founders? Are you helping creative founders? Are you helping like who do people go to you for and think like you are going to be that expert and then you can like run their businesses with your eyes closed because that's all you do day in and day out rather than I was like, no, everyone's the same. It's just inbox and strategy and goal setting. Like, who cares what business they're in? Um, but that really hurt because it was hard to sell strategically. So we would waste a lot of money on the back end trying to actually find our market fit or going to every conference known to man because we're like, there's someone here that's a business owner that needs our help rather than actually being strategic about where we were spending the dollars. And then it was really hard for the staff to be able to actually figure out what they were doing on a day to day because sometimes they would be working with like a dentist office and then they would be working with this massively growing tech company. And then they were working with like, I don't know, a film entertainment production house. And so it was just really hard for them to context switch back and forth of what they were doing. So that's what I mean by we weren't chasing the right clients. The other thing that we weren't doing is we were chasing numbers and not necessarily who can afford us long term. So we would discount uh, the price of entry massively to get people in the door. And so instead of our monthly package of $3,500, we would discount it to about like $750 to get someone in the door. And then they could maybe afford that for 1 or 2 months after. But then we were chasing invoices, we were chasing the money, they would never pay us, we were overworking, rather than saying, like, no, we're only going to take clients that are, can afford our services and value our services.
So you just mentioned something about niching down and focusing specifically on tech founders or medical founders, whatever the case may be. I feel like in the world of business and self-help and everything, there are the two camps, right? A lot of people talk about niching down, getting as specific and granular as possible. And then you also hear people say at the beginning, throw a broad, cast a wide net, try to, you know, get clients in the door and figure out from there what you're best at. Not just in the business that you ran, but with all the business owners that you've worked with, all the founders that you've worked with, all the connections and people you know, which it sounds like you're more in the you need to niche down and have a singular focus camp. Is that accurate? And if so, in your experience, why is that?
Yes, before I would think it was just, you know, fake news. You can help everyone and everyone as long as you're good at what you do. Um, and I still believe you can, but there's a place and time for it. So you can get to the end goal a lot faster and more successfully and sustainable if you concentrate on one thing, one client, one product at a time. You see like big companies when they try to expand their product line, they actually completely go out of business if they do it too quickly. If it's a drink and they come out with 6 new flavors, but their first flavor was doing really well, they actually end up going out of business. Same with the service business. If you're saying, hey, I can help everyone all at once, yeah, you can probably get there, but is it going to be sustainable? It definitely wasn't in my experience. And if it is sustainable, it's probably going to take you a lot longer to get there because there's so many different things behind the scenes that you have to build to be able to sustain supporting and helping all those different clients.
Hmm.
Whether even in sales, if you think about it, like if you are trying to sell to one specific target audience, you know exactly where you're going to look for, your lists, your pipeline building activities. Like you aren't wasting any time. You can be like, okay, I am here. I am looking at this list for plumbers because I need to sell to, I need to bring 16 plumbers in the door this month. Sure, we can help contractors and electricians and whatever, but like if I know who to concentrate on and sell to, I'm going to be able to close that a lot faster than like, oh, I'm going to talk to a plumber and oh, maybe I can go over to this list and see this list. Just easier in your day to day if to like actually focus on that end goal, which is one of the big lessons I learned from the celebrities, which is still very important. I was just kind of doing it backwards.
Um, when you got to the point where this business was failing, I hope it's okay that I say that
Oh
word because
yeah.
I try not to look at anything as pure failure. I mean, you learned a lot out of it, I know. But when you like, so how did it end? Because I want to get into the rebuild, which I think is a super incredible part of your story. How did the actual end come? Like, what were the last couple days like? Did you have like a big staff meeting and tell all your employees and all your clients you were done? Like, how did that go?
No, it was just kind of like a free for all around the holidays. So, my my friend who was kind of a co-founder, she left. We did tell people that she was leaving, but then she put a lawsuit on the business like almost right away.
Mm.
So yeah, the team knew that she was leaving. We at that point had lost well over half our clients. So I would say even well over three-quarters of our clients because they weren't happy or their executive assistants had left anyway. And so it wasn't necessarily like, okay, we're going to like fire off some clients and fire some staff. Like they were just kind of leaving anyway. And it got to the point where for the beginning of 2024, I thought, well, I'm just going to, like, in my head, it was everybody else's fault and not mine. And I was just going to brute force my way back into building the exact same business and prove to everyone that I can do it better than having their help with me, like behind me. And well, guess what? That didn't work. That didn't work. Big surprise.
Yeah.
Um, but it was a process that I had to go through. So I hired a sales team for 2024. And what happened with that is I had to continuously go into personal debt for that. So I had to keep leveraging my home. I had to keep leveraging like everything for that. And I know in my story, I talk a lot about, foreclosing on my home and staring down personal bankruptcy. And it was because I was actually trying to prove everybody else wrong and that it wasn't my fault. If I had just stopped and like took a beat and, um, you know, made the however many 20 clients that we had left and 6 team members that we had left really happy and figured out, okay, what do we want to do now rather than like pushing and forcing my way back into this big business again, then who knows? We might be sitting at a completely different story, but I didn't. I wanted to like prove everybody wrong and then learned another valuable lesson in the process of that.
I think a lot of people, at least in my experience, if they built a business and it didn't work out, a lot of times would give up and go back to doing something different. But obviously, that's not what you did. You now are running multiple successful businesses. When when you got to the point, what made you decide to jump back into the business world, rebuild your own business, and then talk to us a little bit about Take It Easy Group and what that business does?
Yeah. So There wasn't necessarily a time where I said, okay, I'm going to jump back into the business world. I think there just was no other opportunity for me. I've never held a real job before in my life. So, it was like, am I going to go back on the road or am I just going to figure out this business thing? Um, and it wasn't a linear path. And I want to make it clear to, people who are listening is a lot of people share their stories and you see on social media and it sounds like a very linear path. Like I had a business failure and then I had some bad months where I couldn't get out of bed, but then I got hit with this like lightning strike idea and I started building something and like look at me go, I'm massively successful. It doesn't work like that. I don't know a single person that I've talked to who says that they've gone on that very linear path. As I just shared, I tried to rebuild and failed even worse than, and that was pretty quick. That was in like a couple of months, but, failed even worse. And then I knew in the back of my head that I had to like niche down. I had to just pick one clientele that I really wanted to focus on. I had to do something different than a fractional executive assistant model because I was fighting against that. Um, and I knew I had to, and I had the ideas of what I wanted to do. I was just really scared to take that leap 100%. So I would do a little bit. I would say, oh, we're now a chief of staff company and we help celebrities. And the reason why I went back to celebrities is because that's where I came from. That's where my network was originally and is, from. So it's all I've really known. Sure, I kind of dabbled in the tech founder space, but the celebrity world is kind of always something that I've been part of behind the scenes. So I was like, it really does make sense for me to go back into that world. But I was scared. And when people would, potentially come to me that were founders who barely had any money, I was like, yep, we'll help you. Sure, why not? I need the cash to keep building the business. And I was just falling back into those old habits again. And when I was sharing my story of what I do, I was confusing the audience. I was confusing myself. People are like, but are you an executive assistant or do you help celebrity? Like, what do you do? And that didn't work either. So then I realized that like I have to jump. If I'm going to do this, I have to jump 2 feet fully into this. I can't keep, straddling the line here. I have to just do this. And it was really scary. But I had a team meeting with the few team members that we had left, and they were really excited about it. And they were all on board, and they're like, "Yeah, let's do this." And we did it. So Take It Easy group formed into, as I said, a chief of staff business where we primarily help celebrities, high profile creators and athletes who have a business idea that they want to launch and they just don't have anyone around them to take that business idea from their head and make it a reality out into the world. Usually, as I saw, it was falling on the personal assistants in the home, the business managers, some or financial managers, and sure, you can now Google and chat GPT your way into building something, but if you hire a professional who understands how to launch something, then you're going to get it done a lot quicker and more successfully. So yeah, that's what Take It Easy Group does.
I think that's really cool. So you're still helping people as you've always wanted to, and you're focusing on primarily high profile people that maybe, if I understand correctly, have a business idea aside from their main thing. So you're a professional athlete, you're playing through the season, but maybe you have a business idea that you really want to focus on in the off season. So they come to you and they say, Tara, I need help getting this up and going. I need an assistant, etc. And you provide them with basically their executive team. Because I
Yep,
believe when I looked on your website, you have the chief of staff, but you also have other positions technically too that you can hire out, right, for these people.
correct.
And
Yeah.
then So they get your services and then it helps them to launch whatever business, product, service that they're trying to go for, correct?
Exactly. So yeah, we just had an example, a former NFL quarterback who wanted to write a children's book series. So, we didn't write the book for him, but we found someone who could help him with that. We found someone who could help with the illustrations. And then we packaged it all together into a book tour and a signing and little events with children and school kids so we could get the word out. So yeah, that's an example that I love sharing about how we've helped kind of those celebrities, if you will, who have that business idea.
That's cool. So, real quick, just for anyone who's not familiar, what would be the difference between a chief of staff and just like the term executive assistant?
So that's a great question, and it depends who you ask, and it depends on what industry you're in, and what company you're dealing with. So some people will say, I think the main kind of across the board difference is that a chief of staff has the autonomy to basically sit in rooms and make decisions on behalf of the executive, the founder, whoever it is. They are like the actual right hand person of the company, business, one person show, whatever it is. Where an executive assistant is can be extremely strategic and think ahead, but they are mostly thinking about the person's time management and are you actually achieving your goals and how are you achieving your goals, and but like the tactical ways on the calendar of in the meetings and making sure that they're prepared for the meetings. So that would be a big difference. But a lot of times people want to hire a chief of staff because it's kind of a very sexy term right now. And really, they are wanting to hire a strategic executive assistant because they still want all that autonomy and kind of power of making all the decisions, which is totally fine too. There's no right or wrong. It just depends on what stage you are in the business. A chief of staff also does just that. They're the chief of the staff, so they will be very helpful managing teams. Executive assistants are helpful managing teams, but they usually just think about the main executive that they're supporting and how that team affects them rather than the company as a whole.
I like the term chief of staff. It sounds very presidential.
Yes, government. If you say like chief of staff for government, people get it.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, tech founders these days, everyone wants a chief of staff, but usually it's there's two things that they're thinking of. One, it's operations. They actually want a COO, not a chief of staff. So someone to manage their operations and not necessarily fully make the full on decisions. And that's a very blurred line between a chief of staff and a COO. And then a lot of times they just want an executive assistant as well.
And when they come to you, I'm going to tie this back to your first business where you were just getting every client you could, right? And you said that a lot of times you were getting clients you shouldn't have. Are you taking that lesson and applying it to the business now? And if someone comes to you for a chief of staff, but you can tell by talking to them that's not really what they want, how do you coach them through this actually isn't the right fit for you?
Yeah, so it's all part of our initial conversations where we'll ask 1,000 questions about their business and, what does a chief of staff actually mean to you? And what are you looking to get long term? If they don't have a vision for the business, if they just are like, oh, my goal is to make $1 million this month or this quarter or this year, great, but like we need more concrete something to work off of. Um, yeah, it's also about communication style. So we can see very early on if they're going to be the type of person. that we want to work with. I don't know. I guess we have that luxury now of being able to choose.
Mm.
And I get it because I've been in the position where I haven't had that luxury. And I've listened to people say, you got to choose for the business. And I was thinking, like, screw you. I have to pay my rent or my staff or whatever. I'm not choosing. I'm just bringing everyone in. And I get being in that position where you have to do that. And sometimes you just have to do it, but understand that that's not a sustainable way to build and grow the business long term. So have an out, like maybe say, I'm going to take this client on for 3 months, but I'm not going to think in my head that this is going to be a client that's going to be 12 months or 2 years or 5 years or whatever. This is just going to be a client that's going to help me get out of this really bad situation now. Don't tell the client that, but you can think about that in your head.
Okay. Um, you've talked about something called the capacity trap. So, can you tell us a little bit more about what that is? So, I think a quote that I found of yours is time is what's on your calendar, capacity is what you're actually carrying. Will you
Mhm.
will you tell us a little bit more about that? And is this something that you help these want to be founders understand and deal with?
Yeah, 100%. So I think we all get, and when I was, in this stage of having and building my business, and it was growing so fast, I always thought that I was more successful. I was basing my success on how busy my calendar was because I would see that with other people. They had back-to-back meetings and all of this. They were massively successful. They were working 18 hours a day. They were massively successful. But what are you actually doing in that 18 hours a day? And I'm a big believer. I don't like when people say, you know, you have to take breaks and you have to make sure that you only work 8 hours a day. Yes, sure. If that works for you, please do. But if you have big goals and big dreams, you're going to have to make some big sacrifices. And that comes with managing your time and your capacity. And so if you put a million things on your calendar that drain your energy, like administrative work, managing your calendar, social media, maybe, like who knows what it is, talking to the wrong people if you're in sales, that's not managing your capacity. That's actually just putting stuff on your calendar just to put shit on your calendar. And so it's not actually helping you get ahead. Sure, we know the numbers. You have to talk to 100 people to close two people. So you have to have that 100 people on your calendar, but are they the right people? And if you drain your energy, you're going to drain your capacity. So if you have a block of time on your calendar that you've put on that says, this is now my focus time, but you've exhausted yourself throughout the day talking to random people or doing random admin work, you're not actually going to do anything useful in that 2 hour focus block. Even if you write tasks of what you're supposed to be doing, it's going to be really, really hard for your brain to have the capacity to do that.
Also, for all the salespeople out there, if you're talking to the right people, then you might close more than two out of every 100. You might go up to eight or nine or 10 out of every 100. I want to ask you this. I think you would be one of the best people I've talked to answer this question. And this is actually a personal question for me. I'll be fully transparent. Time management and organization are probably two of my worst qualities or abilities, whatever that would be. I tend to have a lot of irons in the fire. I tend to do some of this, then do some of this, then remember, oh yeah, I got to get back to that person. What would be your best piece of advice for getting better at time management?
I work with this myself because I have founder brain. So I get very excited when I come up with an idea and then I want to run in that direction for that idea and I lose everything else.
Mm.
And I know a lot of people will do that, or they get excited about a deal that they're going to close, but they forgot about following up with a deal that could even be, even more successful for this one that's like right there and exciting right now. So I like to have a list, but I put my list on my calendar. So I try to keep tools as simple as possible. If I have an app on my phone, I'm going to go to the app and I'm then going to go to social media and I'm going to scroll down the rabbit hole for 2 hours and then I'm going to forget why I picked up my phone. So I like to have my calendar. I operate in Google. I know a lot of people operate still in like Outlook or Microsoft, but I'm a big Google fan. And I have Google Tasks, and I will just write everything that I think about, even in the moment. Like I could be on a call and I could think, oh yeah, I forgot to follow up with that person. And I'll just write it as a task and just plop it in my calendar at whatever time it is. And then I can finish being present with the call, and my AI note taker can take all of my tasks for me and populate that from the call into Google Tasks as well. And then every night I'll take those tasks and I'll actually physically put them on the calendar of when I am going to do them, tomorrow or the next day or whenever. And then I just work through it. Now, as a founder, and I work with a lot of celebrities, so my phone rings constantly with everybody else's problems. So, sure, I can have a great plan, but I get off track. But that's why I like having the Google task in the calendar, because then I can just move it to another day or another time. Or I can see, oh, I have 26 tasks that I didn't do yesterday. I better maybe do a couple of them before I go to sleep. So trying to keep it as simple as possible and having a system where the second it pops into your brain, you can write it down, get it out of your brain, but then still carry on with what you're doing rather than the squirrel method of like, oh, over here, and now I'm back over here, because you lose time context switching.
That's a great point. And actually, this week, just a few days ago, today's Friday, I think Tuesday of this week, I actually connected Claude to
Yes.
my Google Calendar. And what I've been
Yep.
trying to do this week is I'll literally pull up Claude on my phone and I'll just say, hey, add such and such to my calendar. But now, after just talking to you about this, I'm going to try to make sure maybe what I need to do is every Sunday night, sit down, read off all my to-do list, have Claude to just throw it on my calendar for me. And then throughout the week, I can always move things or add things or take off things
Yep.
if possible. Um,
Yeah. The reason why I like adding them, if you're operating, and this is getting very technical, but if you're operating in Google Calendar, if you add a task as like a meeting or a focus block, once that time goes by in your head and kind of in Google, it's forgotten. But if you add it as a task, the
mhm.
task will always stay as not completed. So the next day you can see like 23 unread tasks, whereas Google just kind of assumes that you did what you did as the day is like scrolling by. And so it's harder for me to go back and say, what did I like? What block do I have to move? So that's why I personally like tasks. One of my, she actually used to be the executive assistant for Richard Branson, one of my team members, and she lives by writing everything she needs to do for the day on one piece of paper. She has one piece of paper for the day. And I tried to do that, but that was stressful for me because everything seemed to have a follow up. So I'm
Mm.
like, I got nothing checked off. I had to keep writing something for like the next day and the next day. So everybody has their own method, but if you keep it as simple as possible, that and keep it off of apps on your phone, because you're just going to get distracted. That would be my biggest advice.
I agree with you too. The apps, there's an app for every single thing when it comes to productivity, organization. It's like there's so many apps to stay organized that you become disorganized by having all these apps. I agree with you, but I do love the idea about tasks because you're right. If you put it on your calendar, Google just assumes you've done it. Whereas if it's in task, am I correct? You actually have to click the little button to check it off the list.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
That's a good point. Um, so real quick, I know that, we don't have a ton of time left, but I think one of the important things when it comes to the world of business is mindset, along with abilities and drive and all of that. Talk to us a little bit about what mindset, A, that you yourself has had that's made you successful, and B, you've worked with so many high performing, high achieving individuals. Is there like a common thread that you see across all of them from a mindset perspective that makes them so successful?
Yeah, there's two. One I kind of focus or talked about and a little bit before, and that was focus. So I work still with, one of the biggest Canadian artists, Drake, and
I love Drake.
he's pretty cool. I've worked with him for many years, managing his home and his random tasks. And he is, and I talk about this a lot, the most, and again, love him or hate him. I know there's a lot of controversy around him, but he is the most focused individual I have ever met in my entire life. And I truly believe that is why he is as successful as he is. I don't know, and I always joke that, if he listens to this, I'm probably getting him fired, but I don't know if he is as successful in producing music as, I think there's other people who are more successful at that. But the reason why he has gotten so far ahead in it is because he understands about like, this is my goal. I am focusing on this. I am not losing any momentum on it. Like this is like a dog on a bone. This is what I'm doing. And he makes sure that his entire team around him is also focusing on that goal. And if you are not, you're out. Like you're dead to him. He doesn't want anything to do with you. So that's very extreme, but I truly believe that is why he is as successful as he is because he doesn't lose the plot. Um, The other one that I find is really helpful is just the kind of stupid sense of this is all going to work out and there is no plan B. Like this is plan A and this is what's going to happen and here I go. And that kind of mindset um, pushes people a lot farther towards success rather than people who are always second guessing, like, oh, what if the person says no on this call, or what if I like do this and post this thing on social media and nobody likes it? Like, who cares? Just do it and move on. And that's your plan, so get it done and just do it. And that kind of also works into the people who are really successful understand that they are the ones that like there is no such thing as like motivation or a better mindset than somebody else. You just like do the thing even if you think it's completely boring because you know that it's going to get you to something successful in the future. So, maybe if you're in sales, oh, I have to send these 100 cold emails. It's the most boring thing in the world, but if I do it, I'm actually going to get rewards. And the person who sends that day in and day out every single day and it's not like, oh, this is boring or I don't have the motivation to do it, they're going to be the ones that are more successful. I find that working with athletes, I see this a lot. It's like in their training, if it's raining outside, they're not going to go, oh, it's raining. I don't feel like getting out of bed today and go running and training my, 5 mile warm up. No, they're going to put their damn running shoes on and they're going to go outside and they're going to run the 5 miles in the rain because that's what they do. You're not going to hear them go, oh, I have a headache today. Maybe I just want to lie in bed and watch some Netflix today. No, they're going to go to the gym. They're going to follow their training schedule and they're going to do it. So whether you can create that or not, I don't know, but those are the people in my head that create the true success.
Yeah, I mean, That's great. I've noticed too that because there's been times in my life where I would try to get pumped up and motivated, and motivation is fleeting.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I kind of try to continue to improve on myself is not worry about motivation and instead focus on just consistency and discipline. I you've said a lot of great things today, that I think, I've personally learned a lot. I hope everyone listening gets a lot out of this too. And one thing I wanted to give you a chance to talk about too quickly, I know that you have your own podcast releasing soon. Can you tell us a little bit more? What is it called? What is it about? And who's it for?
Sure. So the podcast is called Fuck the Fluff, and it's all about people who have been through, shitty times in their life and their business, like I did and I went through, but who are willing to share those tactical, actionable takeaways. Like, hopefully, I've been able to share today of the story of how they got from, kind of being at their own rock bottom to being on the other side and rebuilding. I know that when I was going through a really hard time, I would listen to a lot of podcasts, and I found it really deflating that nobody would share that messy middle. They would always, what I say, fluff over it. And I wanted to say fuck to that fluff. And I wanted to actually share that part because I find that it's the most important. Yeah, sure, it's motivating, as we talked about, saying, oh, I went from, I don't know, living on the street to now making $1 million a month. You can do it too. Yeah, but tell me how you did it. I know my story is completely different than anyone else's story, and following along exactly is not going to get you anywhere, but hopefully it can spark something to be able to be like, oh, yeah, I can try that too, or I can get there. Another one of my biggest pet peeves is you hear people all the time, especially in the founder circles, say, yeah, I stay up all night, multiple nights, thinking about how I'm going to make payroll. Okay, well, how did you make payroll? Like, let's share that. And they're like, oh, just we sold some more product and we made it. Not helpful. How did you actually get there? So, those are the stories I want to share and bring to life.
I love that. And there's actually a lot of synergies between, and that's one of the reasons I wanted you to be a guest is once I read your story, I was like, this would be perfect because at Step into Success, that's also somewhat of our mission. I say our, I originally started this with a couple of partners, and the original mission was it's great. You can listen to Bill Gates and Elon Musk or whoever the current president is and listen to them. And there's a lot of great advice there, but let's actually talk to people that are in the trenches, currently building, and let's get their stories. What are they going through? And then someone like you who was able to openly talk about the business collapsing to an extent, but then bouncing back with multiple more that are doing great. Like I love those kind of stories. So in the notes, in the show notes, when this is on YouTube, I'm going to have all of your website links and all of that. But just go ahead and tell everyone in case someone's listening on Spotify or whatever, if people want to get in contact with you or follow you or learn more about you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so my website is takeiteasygroup.com. You can find me there. There's links. I'm very active on LinkedIn, just my name, Tara with two R's, Stubbins. And yeah, those are probably send me a DM. I will message you back if it's not AI driven. And yeah, I'm
Uh,
pretty active there.
Good deal. All right, very last thing, and you can answer quickly, and we'll wrap this up. I end every episode by sharing a question that was left by the previous guest. They had no idea who's going to be on next. And then I'm going to ask you to leave a question for the next guest, and you're not sure who that is. The question that was left for you was, do you regret taking the entrepreneurial path, being a business owner, rather than maybe the easier path of just working, quote unquote, a normal job?
Never. And to this day, I've never had a real job, so it's never really crossed my mind that I could do it. But almost 30 years into this, my mother to this day still asks me if I'm going to get a real job. So
Love it. That's awesome. She sounds like a good mom. Um, Seriously. So, what question would you have for our next guest? And then we'll get off of here.
what would be your biggest lesson from your biggest failure?
Love it. Tara, it's been great talking to you, getting to know you and your story a little bit more. Really appreciate the time today, and we'll stay in touch.
Thanks so much for having me. I had a great time.
Thank you. Bye bye. All right, let me